Hollywood is full of celebrities, but few have the gravitas of Kevin Costner. Known for his timeless performances and powerful storytelling, Costner has built a career on films that tackle deep, human experiences, often in the context of American history. So, when he walked onto The View to promote his latest Western series, everyone expected the usual conversation about the show, the cast, and the creative process. What nobody expected was the intense ideological battle that unfolded in front of the live studio audience and millions of viewers at home. This wasn't just any interview. Kevin Costner, a respected figure in Hollywood, was put on the spot in a way that challenged his core artistic choices and the messages his films promote. And while this should have been an easy conversation about a long-standing career and a new project, it quickly spiraled into a much larger conversation about representation in Hollywood, cultural responsibility, and the evolving role of cinema in today's world. So, what happened? What was supposed to be a friendly exchange turned into a tense, almost combative interview that had viewers questioning the boundaries of artistic freedom. Today, we're breaking down that pivotal moment, one that sparked a massive debate online and continues to divide people to this day. But before we get into the specifics, hit that subscribe button and let us know your thoughts. Whose side are you on? Kevin's, standing firm in his artistic choices, or Joy's, questioning the social responsibility of filmmakers today? Stick around because you won't want to miss how this drama unfolds. As Kevin Costner made his way onto the set of The View, everything appeared to be perfectly normal. The audience cheered, and the hosts gave him a warm welcome. Whoopi Goldberg, always the calm in the storm, gave him a cheerful greeting, and Kevin waved back with his usual charismatic smile. It seemed like a standard promotional interview. The air was light and the mood was warm. But, of course, things weren't going to stay that way for long. Kevin's new project, a Western series, was the reason for his appearance, and the hosts couldn't wait to hear all about it. Costner had invested his own money into the project, showing how much it meant to him. And it was clear that he had poured his heart into this story. As Kevin took a seat, the energy in the room shifted slightly, and the questions began. Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense approach, immediately took the lead. Kevin, we've heard that you've put quite a bit of your own money into this Western. Rumors are floating around that it's in the hundreds of millions. Is that accurate? Kevin, with his usual composed demeanor, nodded. I don't talk numbers specifically, but yes, I've invested significantly. When you believe in a story, you invest in it. This isn't a vanity project. This is about telling stories that matter. For a moment, the room relaxed. It seemed like just another round of questions about a celebrity's latest passion project. But then, Joy's follow-up question took a sharp turn. But Kevin, she continued, her voice shifting, we're living in a time of crisis. Climate change, racial injustice, inequality. The world is facing huge challenges. Do you think it's really responsible to spend so much money on a genre that, let's face it, is about a past that has little to do with the problems we're facing now? There it was, the first real tension of the interview. The question was charged, pointed, and made it clear that Joy wasn't just interested in Kevin's new project. She wanted to challenge the very foundation of his artistic choices. Kevin's initial response was calm, measured. He wasn't about to let the question rattle him. Joy, understanding where we came from, is not about getting stuck in the past. It's about knowing the foundation of who we are. Westerns, the stories of the frontier, of survival and integrity, are timeless themes. They still resonate because they are human stories. They speak to something deeper than what's happening right now. His voice was steady, but his words carried weight. The audience listened closely. Kevin wasn't just defending a film genre, he was defending the notion that art has value beyond the context of current events. These stories, he argued, transcend time and can still offer insight into human nature, regardless of the era. But Joy wasn't finished. But, Kevin, when we look back at that time, we have to confront the very real issues that were happening. The treatment of Native Americans, the violence, the glorification of a white male-dominated history. Aren't we just romanticizing a time that, frankly, wasn't great for many people? The studio fell into a heavy silence. Kevin's jaw tightened, but he remained composed. He responded, "I don't romanticize the past, Joy. I think we need to understand the complexities of history, both the good and the bad. Dances with Wolves didn't ignore the struggles of Native Americans. My films have always tried to reflect the truth, not to sweep things under the rug." Joy leaned in further. "But Kevin, you're still choosing to make westerns. And at a certain point, doesn't that just become nostalgia? Don't we need to be focused on the present, on stories that matter today?" Kevin's response was firm, almost with a hint of frustration. "Every filmmaker makes choices, Joy. Every storyteller picks what they want to tell, and for me, stories about the American frontier, about courage, integrity, survival, they have value. They're not just for an older generation. They resonate because they explore timeless human experiences. They speak to something larger than just the current moment." He paused as if considering how best to convey the depth of his belief. "I will not apologize for telling stories about honor, sacrifice, and human resilience. These themes matter, and just because we're in a different time doesn't mean they should be ignored. If people find value in them, great. If they don't, that's okay too." Joy wasn't ready to let go, though. She kept pushing, her tone sharpening. "But Kevin, when you make a Western, who are you making it for? Aren't you appealing to a specific demographic? Older, mostly white, maybe even conservative. Isn't that part of the problem?" Kevin's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't raise his voice. "So, you're saying that if someone enjoys a Western, they're somehow stuck in the past? That they're nostalgic for something that didn't exist? That's reductive. That's not fair to the audience, and it's not fair to the genre. Westerns have evolved. They've tackled important issues like racism, corporate greed, and environmental destruction. Just because a film is set in the past doesn't mean it's not asking relevant questions." The tension in the room escalated. Whoopi tried to intervene, but Kevin held his ground. "I refuse to apologize for the films I make. I'm not here to please a political agenda. I'm here to tell stories that I believe are worth telling, and I will not be shamed for that." By now, the debate had turned into a full-scale ideological confrontation. Kevin's words were becoming more intense, and it was clear that he wasn't backing down. The stakes of the conversation were higher now. It was no longer just about movies. It was about the role of art in society, and who gets to decide what stories are worth telling. "Look, Joy, I respect your opinion, but you're simplifying this issue. You're reducing a genre that has been used to tell complex, nuanced stories into a political tool. It's not just about nostalgia. It's about exploring values that are human, universal. Themes of courage, of survival, of people persevering against all odds. These aren't just outdated relics of a time gone by. They're essential to understanding who we are." Kevin's voice grew stronger, his frustration palpable. "I'm not here to make a political statement. I'm here to tell stories that I believe matter. And if those stories happen to be set in the past, that doesn't make them irrelevant. It makes them timeless." The studio was now on the edge of its seat, the audience riveted. The other hosts exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to proceed. Kevin's words were striking a chord, and Joy's criticisms were beginning to sound like an attack on artistic freedom. The debate was no longer about movies. It was about what stories should be allowed to take center stage in Hollywood. It was clear that Kevin was no longer interested in playing by Joy's rules. The conversation had spiraled into something far more personal, and Kevin wasn't going to sit there any longer to be questioned about his life's work. "I came here today to talk about my project, my passion," Kevin said, his voice now cold and deliberate. "But instead of a conversation about the art I've created, this has turned into something else." "I'm done." He stood up, removing his microphone as the audience watched in stunned silence. Whoopi tried to step in, but it was too late. Kevin was already walking toward the exit, his stance resolute. The room was frozen. Some of the audience clapped, others gasped. The tension was electric, and the hosts were left speechless. What had started as an interview about a Western TV show had turned into a profound emotional confrontation about the role of art in today's society. As the audience watched Kevin Costner walk off the set, the atmosphere in the studio shifted. What was supposed to be a light-hearted promotional appearance had turned into one of the most intense confrontations in the View history. The room was filled with a mix of reactions, some applauding Kevin's courage, others shocked by his departure. The hosts, left scrambling, were now at the center of a media storm that would echo far beyond the set. Whoopi Goldberg, always a calm and collected presence, tried to regain control, holding up her hands and calling for calm. All right, let's all take a breath," she said, attempting to steady the situation. But the damage had already been done. Kevin's departure was now the story, overshadowing everything else. The other hosts sat in stunned silence for a moment, processing what had just transpired. Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes exchanged uneasy glances. They knew they had just witnessed a dramatic shift in the conversation, one that would be dissected for days to come. Joy Behar, however, didn't seem entirely shaken by the encounter. She sat back in her chair, arms crossed, her expression a mix of frustration and defiance. "I didn't expect it to go that way," Sunny said, trying to break the silence. "But I also think Kevin was really defending his art, not just the genre." He felt attacked. Joy's face remained unchanged. "It wasn't an attack. It was a discussion," she insisted. "If Kevin can't handle tough questions, then maybe he shouldn't be in this business." The studio's energy was now split. The hosts had just witnessed a Hollywood star walk off their set, and while Kevin's departure had drawn attention to the issue of artistic freedom, it had also sparked a fierce debate about the nature of critique, accountability, and responsibility in the entertainment industry. Outside the studio, social media exploded with opinions from all sides. Was Kevin right to defend his work so fiercely, or had Joy raised valid concerns about the impact of Westerns and their potential to perpetuate outdated and harmful narratives? For many viewers, this moment was a clear manifestation of the larger cultural and political divide in America. On one side, you had those defending artistic freedom and creative expression, those who felt that filmmakers should be free to explore any genre without being weighed down by current political climates. On the other side, there were people like Joy who argued that, with the power and platform filmmakers have, comes responsibility. A responsibility to be aware of the messages they are sending, especially when dealing with history and the legacy of the American frontier. The incident on The View wasn't just a clash of personalities between Kevin Costner and Joy Behar. It represented a much larger conversation that's taking place in Hollywood, in the media, and across the globe. In an age where everything from movies to TV shows is scrutinized under the lens of social responsibility, the question of whether artists should be free to tell the stories they want or if they should be held accountable for the messages they convey has become a hotly debated issue. Kevin Costner's passionate defense of his work made one thing clear. He believes that art should not be confined to the political pressures of the moment. His commitment to Westerns and the stories he wants to tell about the American frontier is rooted in a belief that history, no matter how messy or uncomfortable, holds valuable lessons. For him, these stories are not just about nostalgia or romanticizing the past. They're about telling stories of survival, sacrifice, and resilience that transcend time. But Joy Behar, on the other hand, raised an important point. As a powerful figure in Hollywood, Kevin's films have the potential to influence millions. With that influence comes a responsibility to think critically about the narratives being told, especially when dealing with a genre that has historically glorified a particular perspective of history, one that often ignores the struggles and oppression faced by marginalized groups. The clash between Kevin and Joy was a microcosm of the larger cultural divide we're seeing today. On one hand, there are those who believe that art should be free of political constraints and should reflect the creator's vision without the need for approval or censure. On the other, there are those who argue that, in a time of heightened awareness about issues like race, inequality, and representation, filmmakers and artists should be conscious of the narratives they are contributing to, especially when they are telling stories about a painful past. For many viewers, this interview and Kevin's dramatic walk-off served as a powerful reminder that the debate over artistic freedom versus social responsibility is far from settled. In the aftermath of Kevin Costner's walk-off, it's clear that this moment will linger in the public consciousness for some time. The debate over artistic freedom and responsibility is a complex one, with no easy answers. But one thing is certain. Kevin's decision to leave The View was not just a stand for his work, but a stand for the larger issue of creative control in the entertainment industry. For many, Kevin's exit sent a powerful message. He wasn't going to let the pressures of current political agendas or the expectations of the media dictate the stories he wanted to tell. In a world where filmmakers are increasingly being asked to be more socially conscious, Kevin's stance reflected a belief in the power of art to ask difficult questions and provoke thought, rather than simply conform to the cultural trends of the moment. On the other hand, Joy Behar's questions highlighted an important truth that can't be ignored. The media and entertainment industry have a responsibility to reflect the world we live in. When powerful, influential figures like Kevin Costner make films that romanticize certain aspects of American history, it can have a lasting impact on how people view that history. In an era where representation and inclusivity are central to the conversation, there is a growing demand for stories that reflect the diversity and complexity of the world we live in. In the end, this interview wasn't just about Kevin Costner's Western series. It was a battle over the very nature of storytelling in Hollywood. As the industry continues to evolve, so too will the conversations around who gets to tell stories, which stories get told, and how those stories are received by the public. As we move forward, the conversation sparked by this moment will likely continue to shape Hollywood's future. Will filmmakers continue to have the freedom to create whatever stories they believe in, regardless of their political implications? Or will there be more scrutiny and responsibility placed on artists to consider the social impact of their work? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, this fiery encounter on The View has added another layer to the ongoing debate over art, responsibility, and the role of Hollywood in shaping cultural narratives. So, what do you think? Was Kevin right to walk off the set, defending his artistic freedom? Or did Joy raise valid concerns about the responsibilities filmmakers face in a socially conscious world? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Should filmmakers be free to create without apology? Or should they consider the wider implications of their work? We'll be covering more explosive moments like this one, so make sure you're subscribed to stay up to date.